everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Off the Hook with Matty D. If you were just listening to the previous episode with Dan Honsberger, we were talking about real financial planning, which is a business that he developed, and he's a 20-plus year financial planner, and he's talking about different ways for people to save money, to estate plan, wealth management, and the like. And so we took a break because we're really going to get into the meat and potatoes of this. Let me bring in Dan. Dan, once again, thanks for joining me.
Hey, Matt.
We left off, we talked about, not feeling guilty about budgeting for a trip and doing those things, whether we talk about fly fishing or whatever floats your boat to do.
Right.
But in order to do those types of things, you have to plan financially. And so I want to get into the meat and potatoes now of your business, because you have a lot of different subsections, I guess I should say, right?
Yep.
I guess the first question is, for those that don't know, what truly is a financial planner? What are you doing for a customer, for a client?
Well, a financial planner, that's an awesome question. Financial advice or financial advisor can mean a lot of different things. It can mean anything from like an investment broker to somebody who does kind of comprehensive life planning and tax planning and that sort of thing, which is what I do. Mm-hmm. So for me, it means helping people with anything that has to do with their financial situation. You rattle off a couple of things that I think about: taxes and investments and insurance and estate planning and planning for retirement, planning for your kids' education. So it can mean a lot of different things, but my job is basically, to tie it into fishing, is to be somebody's fishing guide for their money.
Right.
To take the experience and the knowledge that I have, help apply it to their situation and help achieve their goal and goals, which, probably involves retiring at some point, probably involves doing fun things along the way.
Right.
Probably involves helping their kids go to college or just get set up in life. So, I think of it as being kind of a comprehensive guide, and just as a fishing guide deals with so many different variables on a fishing trip: the weather, the water temperature, where the fish are going to be, what the structure is. I also deal with all of the different variables and things that people have to think about with related to their money.
As a layperson like myself, that is foreign language, right?
Yep.
I deal in television weather, and I love to fish, right? But to think about retirement planning, I have my 401k. I studied the different options that my company offered and whatever, and I have an IRA here.
Right.
But that's low end, right? It's in order for really to understand, I have to talk to somebody like you. So I'd like to kind of walk through some of your services here. I'll bring up the browser. We'll start with wealth management. What exactly do you mean by wealth management?
Well, with wealth management, I think about, building your nest egg so that you figure out when you're going to be able to retire, and you kind of know ahead of time, and you can kind of plan ahead of time. So how do you build your nest egg? How do you invest it appropriately and plan, and save in a tax efficient way appropriately, so that you have, a big enough nest egg so that you can do what you want in retirement.
Right.
Who is it? Notorious B.I.G. who said, "Mo money, mo problems."
Right.
Wealth management. Somebody's going to check me on that, and it's going to be wrong.
No, it's Biggie Smalls, which is Notorious B.I.G.
I'm over my skis with hip hop references,
and P Diddy or Puff Daddy or whatever the heck he's called now. Right. Yeah.
We can't talk about him anymore, though.
Right. True.
But I think about building that nest egg, managing it appropriately so that it's fruitful for you when then you need it for doing the things that you want to do that cost money, big trips or retiring, sending your kids to college. It's managing that wealth that you've worked so hard to accumulate just in a responsible way, basically.
And two things that come to mind, because you said something about taxes. I want to get to that in a second. But managing that in a responsible way, that is making proper investments. And you guide me to investments, or you invest for me, or both?
I do both. Okay. It's not a requirement for me to manage investments, but I can and do manage investments on clients' behalf. through Charles Schwab, which is just one of the big investment brokers, custodian, really. I'm not a broker. I'm a registered investment advisor. So one thing that folks may or may not know about is that there's a lot of different ways for financial advisors and planners to get compensated. One of which is a broker model where folks get commissioned. I don't do that. I'm a fee only financial advisor, which means that I'm solely compensated by the fees that clients pay to me. And I'm a fiduciary, which means that I'm obligated to act in their best interest. So if there's, that's really important to me. And it's different than, than a broker who's looking to sell you products, that sort of thing.
So I want to talk about the fee for a second. So is the fee something that you set up ahead of time with the client?
Right.
And is it a one-time fee or is it like a sweep quarterly? Both? How does it all work?
I work in two different ways, basically. I work with clients on a project basis. So if they have like one or two things that they really need help with, we'll just set up a flat project fee, and I take half of the fee up front and half upon completion. Maybe somebody wants to review their tax situation and do some planning on that, or maybe they just want a retirement projection. That sort of thing I'll do on a project basis. Then I also work with clients on an ongoing basis, which is just a monthly retainer that we, as you said, everything is set up ahead of time. Clients agree to it ahead of time.
Sure.
I think that is a simple and straightforward way. There are different compensation models that would spin your head.
Sure.
Where, some advisors will take 1% of the investments that they manage, or, and some advisors will get a commission for the products they sell to you. I'm most comfortable with the model that I described where, it's a fee based on the work, or it's a fee based on the ongoing relationship, and it's consistent over time until something changes and you need to change the engagement.
Gotcha. The second thing you mentioned was taxes. And I think that's very important in today's world, right? I mean, every April 15th, we have to file our taxes, but that tax law is as changeable as I change my underwear every day.
Yes.
I mean, or maybe twice a day if I play tennis or I fall in the river, right? So, I mean, you guide people into like, if we make an investment here, you're not paying taxes today. However, when you're 65 and you start making those withdrawals that you have to make, you're going to get taxed there. What are you comfortable with? So you explain the whole tax world as it stands now and the ever-changing tax world.
As you said, things change very quickly with taxes, and the right time to be thinking about planning for your taxes is usually not when you're filing your tax return. At that point, usually it's a little too late, because you're into the next calendar year for filing last year's tax return.
Right.
So for me, I think about tax planning in two different ways. One is, how do we do tax efficient savings? I'm going to throw out some jargon out there that you may or may not be familiar with. An IRA versus a Roth IRA. Or IRA, or a traditional 401k versus a Roth 401k. The difference between those two different savings options is one of them, you get with a traditional IRA or a traditional 401k, you get a tax deduction on the money that you contribute, reduces your taxes in the year that you contribute, but every dollar you take out in retirement is taxable to you.
Right.
The Roth option is you don't get a tax deduction on your contributions, but the money grows tax-free and you can use it tax-free in retirement. So even something as simple as whether I make my contributions to a pre-tax or an after-tax Roth account has big implications for, your situation 20, 30 years down the road when you're ready to start taking money out in retirement. So for tax planning, I think about tax efficient savings. And then I also think about managing your tax bill in the year that you are in, and then over the long term. And that can be as simple as just understanding whether you're on track for a refund or a tax bill. I can't tell you how many people I talk to who come to me and they say, part of the problem with my taxes is that I had a big tax bill last year and I didn't know it until April 15th. And then I filed my tax return and I had to come up with $5,000-$10,000 to pay my bill. And that's what I call a bad surprise.
Right.
You know, and a big part of my job is avoiding bad surprises with taxes and various other financial things. So, there's that. It's avoiding negative surprises. It's trying to get ahead and make sure you're not paying underpayment penalties. But it's also thinking about, are there different levers that you can pull? Are there different things that you can do to actually reduce your tax bill, when you're in your highest earning years, which tend to be your highest tax rate years.
Right.
And a lot of times for folks who are 10, 15 years ahead of retirement, there are things that you can do to reduce your tax bill in those high earning years, and then let you take advantage of lower tax brackets when you're in retirement. So, don't get me started on taxes. We'll do an hour just on taxes.
I understand.
I love taxes. I have a problem with that. But taxes are one of those things that touch almost all of the different aspects of finances.
For sure. Okay, and let's move on because you answered the question well, and so and I'm trying to make sure that everybody understands.
Yeah.
Retirement planning. You mentioned this partially with what we just talked about there, between a Roth IRA or Roth 401k, a standard IRA. So again, just to kind of make it simple, so I understand, if I do an IRA or a 401k, I'm putting in money before it's taxed in my paycheck.
Correct.
So I get the benefits this year.
Yes.
But that money is then, so Uncle Sam's still going to get his money, so he's going to tax it as I pull it out.
Right.
When I have to do my yearly pullouts. I forget what the name is called.
The required minimum distribution.
Required minimum.
When you're 75, if you're lucky, or earlier in retirement,
Right.
If you need it.
Whereas the Roth is, I get my taxes taken out now,
Right.
so I put it in after taxes,
Right.
so now the government can't double tax me.
Exactly. Right. That's exactly right.
Got it. So let's talk a little bit about retirement planning here. I'll bring up your website once again, and it's realfp.com. There's lots of ways to guide people here, I'm sure.
Right.
So give me, number one, let's start with the simple question. Bring it back up on screen. Why do I want to plan for retirement? Isn't Social Security going to cover me?
Well,
I know the answer is
Social
no.
Security is it's a great safety net for people who don't have enough money. It will be there, barring unforeseen circumstances for the rest of your life.
Right.
It's great to have, but for most people, they envision a life that costs more money than what their Social Security, check will be. So just as we talk about planning ahead for doing the cool fishing trip that you want to do in 3 years, also it pays to, as soon as you can, as early as you can, to start thinking about and setting aside, making little sacrifices out of your paycheck to set aside money so that you can live a cool life, when you're 65 or 60 or whatever age you can retire at. Most people want to retire at some point,
Right.
or want the flexibility to be financially independent, which means that maybe you can continue to work. Maybe you love what you do and it's fulfilling, but maybe you want to kind of scale back a little bit so that you're not grinding it out when you're 75 years old. So that's the benefit of advanced planning. And the sooner you can start planning and thinking ahead about those things, the smaller the contributions have to be to help you live the life that you want in retirement.
I have a 21-year-old daughter, and she's finishing college. She walked in, but she's finishing the last couple of credits. She's going to go on to grad school. Okay. And I told her, I said, when you get into your job, one of the things you need to do is, even if it's 4%, 5%, 10% if you're lucky, to put it into a 401k.
Yep.
You won't notice it out of that paycheck. It's not, but it grows exponentially over time. And I don't know that there's a lot of kids today that understand, put it away. And is that lost in today's translation?
There's some personal financial education that's taught in high school. I think there always could be more.
Right.
But you're right. Oftentimes we learn from the habits and the behaviors that the people around us, our family, exhibit. And unless you've got an awesome dad who's telling you, hey, you actually need to save 10% of your income. that's not one of the first things that comes to mind.
doesn't.
You know, when you get your first paycheck, it's probably like, what kind of cool car could I get? Or like, can I get, I don't know what the awesome video games are now, but I'm sure there are things like that.
Right.
Or, you know, if you're a freak like us, like, oh, like new paycheck, I can go get fishing rods or gear, you know, stuff like that. So yeah, it's really important for people starting out to do things like take advantage of free money with their employer 401k, you know, and by that I mean contribute. If you get a match from your employer, contribute at least enough to get the full match, and then you've doubled your contribution, but it's only costing you half of the
money,
number.
right.
So
At what age should people start? I mean, as soon as they start working and they have the ability, they should start putting away, Dan?
as soon as you're earning an income, I hear every once in a while stories about people who, you know, had a lawn mowing business in high school and they set aside money even as they're doing that. So as soon as you start earning money, it's a great idea to start building the habit. You mentioned something that I talk about a lot, which is pain. The pain, you know, if you can do a little bit, if you can contribute a little bit, you're not going to notice that money in your paycheck.
Right.
And then as you make more money over time, as you get a raise, you can increase the contribution rate a little bit, and you're not going to notice that money being gone. And you get used to living a lifestyle where you're saving a good chunk of your paycheck
without hurting yourself in the present.
and you're not really even noticing it.
Yeah.
You know, that's the like, if you can get to somebody early and give them that advice, that is the most pain-free way of doing it. Because then if you think about it, and if you think about the power of compounding interest, if you as a 20-year-old, an 18-year-old, a 22-year-old have 40 years to do that little drop in the bucket of savings and have it accumulate and grow over time and earn a return, you know, the future value of your contributions ends up being humongous.
And some of these returns, if you take advice from someone like yourself, could be, you know, on a bad year, minimum 6, 7, 8%. Good year, you might roll even higher.
Yeah.
And it's your money's making money for you.
Right.
So I guess the question I want to go back to is, why do I need to have a retirement plan? Can't I just chuck it all into my 401k and I'm good to go?
Yeah, it's you know, roll your life forward to you being 65 years old and your people around you are retiring and doing fun things and maybe have bought a house in Florida that they go to in the winter, and you're still working your job, and you will for the foreseeable future because you haven't accumulated money, you haven't done things in an intentional way. That for me is, you know, that's the reason that you plan, so that you don't, you know, you're living your life intentionally and you're not living your life in a reactionary way. That's the biggest thing, so that, you know, you can envision your life and live your life the way you want to.
You offer something as well, estate planning, estate analysis.
Yeah.
That to me sounds mind-blowing, right?
Like, what even is that, right?
And so let's start there.
Yes.
What is that?
Well, you know, for folks who have unfortunately had to be the executor of or a trustee of a parent's estate or a family member's estate, you know, those folks have been through the pain of estate disposition or have had to be the financial power of attorney for a family member who's been incapacitated. This is one of those areas that people don't think about as being related to money, but it really is. So establishing estate documents that will disperse your estate to the people that you want to ends up actually being pretty important. And this is another aspect of planning. And you can live your life without having a will and a trust and powers of attorney. But then when you die, you're going to follow the process that the state has put together, which is oftentimes onerous and difficult for the person who ends up being the executor. And you can avoid all that pain by creating an estate plan, working with an attorney to draft estate documents, and sparing your loved ones the hassle of having to go down to the county courthouse and file, to become your personal representative, paying probate taxes, spending 6 to 12 months of their life probating your estate. Hopefully these words that I'm saying, like, you don't know what they are because you haven't had to do them, because, the people in your life have created estate plans. But that's the sort of thing that I look at and work through with clients, is just as we talk about retirement planning or minimizing taxes, how do we reduce the pain and the friction related to, your potential incapacity or your death at some point,
Right.
Which nobody loves to think about, but it's important to plan for, because I'm trying hard to think about a situation in life where you're better off just letting it happen.
Oh, you're not.
And I don't think there are many situations in life.
I'll roll back with a short soliloquy here. We talked about in the first episode, my dad passing. 7 weeks later, my stepmother, his wife, passed. They had a full living trust, which became, locked in trust,
Right.
full estate plan. I was the trustee, I'm the executor, etc. He did things what he thought was good, but he did it himself. He did not have a financial planner.
Yep.
So one of the
attorney.
right.
Yep.
So he did have an attorney who drew up the documents and all, which
Okay.
was good, and they had a very good accountant. But what he didn't do was have a secondary beneficiary to a lot of his accounts.
Yeah.
So the accounts went from my dad to her, but because she had passed so close to him, we couldn't do the transfer of assets.
Right.
So to answer the question of, I hope you've never heard of these words, I am stuck in probate. I am stuck in probate in California.
Oh.
I have California attorneys. I have East Coast attorneys that constantly talk. I talk all the time. So my dad passed away, as I mentioned, about a year ago. She passed just before Christmas last year. And we are sitting here in the middle of October, almost end of October, and we are just about to pass phase 1 of proving to the probate court that we have done all of our due diligence. Then we have to pay taxes on everything. So the heirs of their estate will not see that fruit until sometime May of 2026, which is not the way that they had planned it, but things happen. But I was their power of attorney. So while they were alive, I was also there. And the other thing we should talk about too, not just power of attorney, but power of attorney for health.
Medical directive
Is
agent.
huge because they were constantly, as they were getting older, needing more medical, and they couldn't make good decisions for themselves. So I had to step in quite a bit. And that's really important.
Yeah. I'm preaching to the choir here.
Yep.
You're living the nightmare,
Yep.
unfortunately. It's, as you said, it can be done in a way that is just so much less painful.
So much less.
And one of the benefits of having a good financial planner, part of my job is to understand my client's situation enough to be able to, like, oftentimes I'll go with them to an attorney's office to review draft documents and say, hey, actually, this doesn't match my understanding of what they want, right?
Right.
A lot of times I'll actually prepare an outline actually to send to the attorney that says, here are the primary people, here are the contingent beneficiaries, which reduces your time with an attorney, which, as we all know,
is cost.
time is money.
Oh, especially with an attorney.
But then it helps make sure that your wishes are appropriately reflected. So that's one of the benefits of, or one of the things that I think of as being my job, is to be that third party who really understands client situation intimately and can help translate that to their attorney, their accountant, insurance people, all of the different third parties that you touch related to finances.
Because there is so many different, if you have one tree, there's about 50 different branches that come out.
Mortgage is a recent one I've been thinking about a lot. Yeah.
So there's some really important things there.
Yeah.
Other services that you offer, Dan, you mentioned tax planning, the education planning. Let's talk about that, because when my daughter was born, I got the brochure from Virginia 529, and in the brochure, I mean, I laughed. I really did, right? I mean, I wasn't making a tremendous amount of money, 20 plus years ago, and it said, put away $2,000 a month, and I was saying to myself, and so, what about the mortgage I'm going to pay, the 2 loans on my cars, and the day-to-day groceries and heating, and that was it was like, okay, so the plan was, I'll put away what I can, and we'll figure it out. And we figured it out. And, at the end of the day, her college was paid for. But
that's awesome.
It's
not linear. Right?
No, it's
lumpy.
It was very,
as that saving for college
is, and college from when she was born, and I don't mean to interrupt because I want to hear your comment, was, maybe 4 years was $30,000.
Yeah.
At age 21, she finished at $86,000, right? I mean, it doubled, and it's only going to get worse. So how do we do that smartly? What are we looking at?
Well, you made a great point, which is you got to start somewhere and do something. And I think about this with anything that you're saving for, right? Like it could be, people can throw out like a huge number and say, you're going to need millions of dollars to fund your full retirement, right? Like, which can paralyze you. Starting to think about the numbers for even Virginia state schools, what it costs for room and board for an in-state student, the numbers can be astounding, right? And it can really put you off getting started, because it's very easy to say, oh, well, I'll never have that, so I might as well not even worry about it, right? But as you found, I think, you'll be surprised at how doing something consistently over time then, builds the muscle. You don't see that money in your checking account every month, so you're not planning to spend it, right? And as your income increases over time, hopefully you have more capacity to save. Virginia 529 is an awesome plan, by the way, and you can do a lot more than saving for college. You can use up to $10,000 of your 529 account for private kindergarten through 12 tuition, K-12 tuition. So that's my default, is for anybody who's thinking about saving money for their kids' education, whether it's private school, K-12, or college. It's just start doing something in your 529 plan for your state. Oftentimes there are state-specific tax benefits. Virginians get a benefit. You get a state tax deduction when you contribute to your Virginia 529 account. So
but that's just one small piece. There are so many different things that you can explain to clients to help them save for college for their children.
Yeah, that's right. It's anything from what do you need if you want to fully fund your kids' education, to even do you want to fully fund your kids' education? Some people, I know I contributed to my college education, and some people want their kids to have skin in the game in that way. At the same time, everybody doesn't have a newborn, right? Some people have kids in college, or kids who have graduated from college. You'd be surprised how many people that I meet in their 40s and 50s who have student loan debt, from a master's degree or even their undergraduate degree. So education planning ranges anywhere from thinking about and saving for college to actually, how do I manage my student loans, which there is a topic of finances. Managing your federal student loans can get as complicated as anything else in financial planning. So,
and when is it ever too late to start planning?
No. Never. So, it's never too late to start doing something, right? Because what's the saying? Like, the best time to plant a tree was yesterday, and the next best time is today. And it's the same thing for planning anything related to your finances. If somebody is seriously ill, you can still create an estate plan for that person. If somebody they want to retire in 5 years, but they haven't saved a penny, you got to start somewhere, right? So starting somewhere, taking a hard look at what your vision is, will allow you to then start making progress towards that thing. I wish that every person coming out of college or high school knew to save at the level that they did, but not everybody has that example that we've talked about, having that good family system. So it doesn't matter if you're in your 30s or in your 40s, or if you feel like the income that you have isn't going to allow you to save at the level that you need to. You got to start somewhere and do a little something, build the habit, and then increase it over time as you're able to.
I want to remind people I'm talking with Dan Honsberger of Real Financial Planning, realfp.com. And on his website, I'm going to bring it up here for just a second. If you scroll about halfway down, there's an area where you can just say, let's start the journey, and just drop Dan just a quick little note. He'll contact you and begin that confidential, that's the word there, important conversation. Maybe it is about estate planning. Maybe it is about retirement planning. Maybe it is about wealth management. Dan has been doing this for over 20 years. So It's not like he just started this yesterday. So I want to get that back out there. Dan, when you talk about the world of financial planning, as we've been talking about, we could sit here and talk for the next 3 hours because there's so many and not touch more than 10% of the surface. But we do want to move on just a bit here. Sure. Some of that planning for the future, as we started with in our first episode, also has to do with doing things that you want to do now. Right. So multiple buckets is what you're talking about.
Yeah, I'm talking about, the concept of doing a little bit of a couple of different things as opposed to only doing one thing, right? So, we talked earlier about how it would be very easy for a financial advisor who doesn't know your situation to say, well, you got to save $10,000 a year or you're not doing anything, right? But how helpful is that, right? Much more common is for me to, very early on in a new client relationship, to understand, like, the first thing I do with clients is to say, what do you want to do with your life? What's important to you? And we literally just list out, like, I want to send my kids to college. I want to retire roughly at this age. I want to do fun things while I'm working. And part of my job is to help clients do a couple of different things at the same time, more than one things at the same time, so that they can achieve these multiple different goals, right? So you don't necessarily need to only save for retirement each year. You also can, at the same time, set aside money for education planning and set aside money so that you can do a fun family vacation. And part of my job, and I think about budgeting or setting spending plans without guilt, is allowing clients to live their life and do the fun things that they want to do along the way, so that they're incentivized to keep sacrificing and saving for things that are coming down the future, many years in the future, like retirement or college planning. So I actually think it's really important to be able to do the fun things that keep you energized, even as you're sacrificing for the future.
And the fun things, as you said earlier, give you that insight to, hey, this is what it might look like.
Yeah.
And really, and those fun things, because we fish, was my Alaskan fishing trip, right? And then it made me think, okay, so what else can I do without hurting myself down the road?
Right.
What other types of, cool things, and I think that's important to
Yeah.
have that fun.
We talked earlier about the way I got starting in fishing, doing a trout fishing trip on the Savage River in Maryland. And my journey since that time in fly fishing has almost exclusively been all about how do I replicate the feeling that I had when I was standing knee deep in cold water in May in Western Maryland, the mountains of Western Maryland. And, that doesn't necessarily mean that I have to go spend a bunch of money, although I've described for you some things that I love to do that cost money. I love trying to replicate that in our local bass and bluegill streams. So doing cool things doesn't always necessarily cost a lot of money. We've talked a lot about different ways that you can do fun things and make community and build community so that you can get out and fish and have it, fish on in a way that, that's not breaking the bank.
Yeah.
Right. That's something I think about a lot.
And I think one of the things that, we should talk about, and you hit it here when we talked off air before we even started talking, is, you don't need to buy the latest and greatest XYZ Orvis, whatever, right? You can get a secondhand rod, or if you need an 8-weight for something in your community, hey, does anybody have an 8-weight I can use for this week? I'm going to and somebody's going to lend you that rod, right? You don't have to buy a rod for pike and buy a rod for bluegill and buy a rod for rainbows and buy a rod for salmon. You can beg, borrow, and not steal, but the line there, right?
Even our local fishing guides, it costs half price if you book a fishing trip with Current Culture Fly Shop. If you split the trip with a buddy. Right. And you get to use their rod and reel and flies. And you learn stuff along the way so that you can become self-sufficient and fish more on your own, which costs less in the future. So basically, I'm trying to talk you and other people into using more guide services earlier on because it'll cost them less money in the long term.
Right.
But I actually believe that. I think that the more you can educate yourself through using experienced guides or just building community in some of the member organizations or through your local fly shop, that exposes you to people who can help you learn, people who can help you find deals on gear. By the way, I've become a pro scrounger on Facebook Marketplace. I've bought rods for like $100 that are, would be a couple $100 new. So you can find good deals. I think there are more resources than ever for people who are just starting out in fly fishing. I'll give a shout out to Trailhead Creative, who created this awesome website that we've been looking at. They're located over in the Bellevue neighborhood in Northside, and they have a little free library, but for fly fishing gear, so there's free lures and, wading socks and other stuff there that you can use. And you mentioned other groups like
Richmond Fly Women.
Fly Women who, will exchange gear, and Fly Fishers of Virginia. There's all sorts of organizations that can help you get started. And then all sorts of different ways that you can kind of incrementally build up over time your closet of fly fishing gear until, like me, you've filled up an entire closet.
And it's insane for sure. I mean, it can get really crazy. Dan, I'm going to ask you just point blank. I mean, you love to fly fish. Is there a destination, or are there destination trips that you're putting on your calendar for 26, 27, 28? And how are you working toward those goals if I spin it around?
Yeah. Well, we talked about this recently, just over the dinner table, and I told my wife and son that I would love to go fish the Amazon for peacock bass. So fish in Brazil for peacock bass together, and that is as much for adventure purposes as it is for actually catching fish, because as we've seen presentations with Fly Fishers of Virginia where people talk about an experience like this where you're you're actually floating down the river overnight. You're sleeping on in a tent on a barge, basically, and then you go out and fish, for like a week. So that's the thing that comes to mind when you say like a dream thing to do. I've dreamed about doing a fly-in trip to Alaska as well, but more and more, my dreams involve other people because I have enjoyed creating memories with my friends and my family so much more than creating memories that only exist in my brain.
Right. Right.
So that's what I think about. As far as I don't have one of those dream trips on the calendar right now, but I kind of have a dream trip like planned for the next summer, which is our month-long road trip out to Missoula, which is, again, it's a family adventure where I do a heck of a lot of fishing.
Yep.
In an awesome place.
And you're with your wife, you're with your child, and they love it. I mean, it's something unique to be away for that long of time, and especially you create those memories because when your son is 30, he's gonna sit by you, and you guys will be sharing a beer, and he'll be like, remember in 2027 we did this in Missoula, and you'll laugh just like that, because it is so cool to have those types of memories.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
for sure. Let's talk about call to action here. So I'm listening to this. I haven't really done anything other than I have a 401k, I have an IRA. What should I do? I'm going to bring up your website here. First thing, as we said before, is start the journey. Let's get in touch with you, Dan.
Yeah. I'd say, just drop me a line. It's really easy to book time for an initial conversation. And that can be for whether you have, like, you want a complete review of your financial situation, or you've got like a very specific problem and you just want somebody to talk through it with. I'm pretty open. As I said before, I don't necessarily need every person that I talk to become a long-term client of mine.
Right.
Although I'm happy for that to happen. I love helping people. We've talked about many of the different areas of finances, which can be very arcane and jargon filled. And I love translating for folks. Just like, even if someone wants to know, like, what the heck do you mean by like an estate plan? I'd be more than happy to have a 30-minute conversation and just talk to you about why you need an estate plan and what the different documents are, and give you a referral to an attorney who can do it, for you, or some DIY options to build an estate plan, just as an example, Right. So I love talking to people about financial stuff. Obviously, we're now on our second session here.
Right.
And I love talking about fishing, and I just love people.
Which is good. I want to bring up your website one more time. Again, it's Real Financial Planning, realfp.com. The services about, you can learn more about Dan. And again, as we've talked about, Dan has been doing this for over 20 years. He started off Capital One a long, long time ago. So he knows the ins and outs of the financial world. And again, on the main page, if we go back to that, about halfway down, you can just drop him a line to begin that conversation, to begin that journey, as he says. All right, Dan, I want to do a lightning round with you. Piece of fly fishing gear that you never leave home without.
Piece of fly fishing gear. I love my Orvis sling pack, which I repurpose for whatever type of water that we're fishing on, saltwater or trout fishing or bass fishing. I'm always, even if I'm on a guided trip, always got my sling pack, which lets me cast without getting in the way, and it's got all of the gear that I could need.
Yep. I do the belt pack.
You got the hip,
and I swip it. I don't put the neck part around, and I swing it right around so it's behind me. My entire front is free.
I mean, I don't have a big enough butt for a hip pack, but I envy you. You've got you got the gear for it.
Thanks for the comment. I got big butt and I cannot lie.
It's popular. That's what people love.
All right, tie in weather, fly fishing, and financial planning.
Weather, fly fishing, and financial planning. Oh my gosh.
That's a tough one.
It's kind of hard for me to like narrow it down to like one specific thing, but boating is sort of the common element for me there. So, or even just getting out on the water, doing a trip. So let's say you've hired a guide to go on a fishing trip. Let's say you want to get out on the Chesapeake Bay with Simone Valencia of Current Culture Fly Shop, and you want to sight fish redfish.
Which, by the way, is so difficult, as you found out.
It's
great.
It's intoxicating.
Oh, like God, for sure.
That's what I'm chasing right now in the area. So you want to get out on the bay with Simone, and it costs you, a couple $100, right? Depending on whether or not you want to share the experience with somebody. So you've got to prepare and set aside that money in your monthly budget. You don't want to put it on a credit card, right?
Yes, you do not.
But also, as I think we've even exchanged messages about recently, the weather on the bay changes, and you are fully dependent on what's happening with wind as to whether or not you're actually going to get out and fish the bay. Correct. So I had big plans this past Sunday to get my family out on my boat on the Chesapeake Bay.
You're not doing with 50-mile-an-hour gusts out of the east.
Yeah, but pesky tropical depressions rolled through and put the kibosh on that plan.
Yeah. All right, real quick, favorite local water to fish?
Hands down, James River, downtown Richmond. In an urban setting, you've got insane amounts of wildlife happening right around you. So I remember fishing near the 14th Street Bridge downtown this past spring, and catching fish, having people drive across the bridge right behind me, and also having ospreys come and smack the water and pick up, herring and shad and fly away with them. Ospreys and eagles, even, bald eagles and herons. I just think downtown Richmond on the James is so cool. I love Current Culture Fly Shop for popularizing that and getting people psyched about fishing.
They may have done too good of a job of it because it is slammed now, which is great. I mean, because I don't think people were realizing the resource we had running through the middle of the city.
Yeah.
Favorite piece of cheap fly fishing gear?
Oh,
or let least expensive. Yeah. Let's not say cheap as in,
No, I get a ton of use out of my neoprene wading boots and my Orvis wading boots.
Like the full wading boots?
No,
just the boots themselves.
I just have like a neoprene sock that goes into my wading boots.
Okay, yeah.
And that saves me from using like full waders, which I probably use like maybe once or twice a year. Even, so I love wet wading. And
you're not wet wading on the Erie tribs in the middle of January.
Not the ice fishing. Okay. No, I've got like neoprene waders for those.
But when we're talking smallmouth on the James in the middle of June, July, it's
any of the Virginia rivers, even the cold water trout fishing rivers, even when I'm out in Montana in like 50 degree water, I'm wet wading. I'm not wearing like full waders. Which, if you think about the cost of like brand new waders,
I know the cost.
You can spend $1,000 easy, right?
Yeah.
But I have these like $20 pair of neoprene booties and like $150 wading boots. That I've used for years now, and I don't really wear waders that much.
That you're a better man than me. I mean, I will wet wade the James, May, June, July, August when it's really nice.
Yep.
But otherwise, I'm full gear waders.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, and especially when I go up north. I mean,
you've got to weather dependent.
It's another layer of protection too.
Right.
All right. Last question. Dream species.
Dream species.
Anything that you.
I would love to catch. I mean, it's redfish for me right now.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I haven't caught one. I'm trying to do it the hardest way possible, doing sight fishing
Single
with
sites.
Simone,
Yep.
which is part of why I want to get out on the bay on my own a little bit to try some more like blind casting, you know, catch it. But that's it. It's red drum. Just in the last like year and a half, have I even thought about fishing saltwater?
Yeah.
You know, so that's a whole new world for me. It's something I'm really excited about.
It's completely new. My first one at FFV, we had a guide on from the Crystal Coast of North Carolina.
John Mauser.
Yeah. And I won the trip. And so we went and we did. I've always wanted to do false albies on the fly. So we did the false albies on the fly, and that was my first real. I done red fishing with Simone and loved that as well. So that's how I really got into salt, right?
Yeah.
So and then. Been very fortunate this past year. We did a family vacation to the Keys, and like you, my wife said, "Why don't you go hire a guide for a day?" And I said, "Well, this is our family trip." She goes, "Right, it's a family trip where you're supposed to have fun too." So, but yeah. So then the Bahamas coming up in mid-November.
I can't wait to hear about that.
Yeah, I hear it's supposed to be incredible, and I've had good luck with Simone.
Yep.
I had good luck with John Mauser. I did not have good luck in the Keys.
Okay.
It was just a rough day. Tried really hard. I have 5 days in the Bahamas. I have to have it. Odds would say 1 day's got to be good.
I think those are in your favor.
Yeah, for sure. Dan, I can't thank you enough for coming in and talking about your business, Real Financial Planning, kind of breaking it down as to why it's important, but also relating it to, as we talked about fishing, but that people should do things fun for themselves beside just stock all the money away for your day that you're going to retire.
Yep.
So,
My pleasure. It was great talking with you. Obviously, I love talking about it. So thanks for the opportunity.
Absolutely. And again, you can check out Dan at realfp.com. That is his website. You can book an appointment now. You can click on the link. You learn more about the services from wealth management, retirement planning, tax planning. Learn more about Dan, resources, frequently asked questions. Of course, there is a phone number down below too. Give him a call or fill it out and talk with Dan and start that journey today. This has been Off the Hook with Matty D. It's been my pleasure to be with Dan, and we'll have another episode of Off the Hook with Matty D coming up in about a week. See you then. Thanks for joining us for another episode of Off the Hook with Matty D.